Well, Coach, in the office already. I'm sure grinding, getting ready for another season. Got a little freshy there, like new haircut. Where you go? Is that one on the side? Is that what I'm
It's thinking? It's a one and a half. It's a 1.5, and it's a Cajun 1.5. So it's not truly a 1.5. But the gal that cuts the hair here for everyone, she comes in once a month, and yeah, you get a little sloppy at the end of the year, and you know it's time to bring it down and cut some weight, trim the hair, and get going. I got a little locker room set up because of COVID, so we had a chance to move stuff around, and so a lot of reorganizing to do.
Okay, so honest question: when she's cutting your hair, are you on the cell phone? Are you fully engaged in a discussion?
It's a great question. All right, ready? If you engage in a discussion, she'll talk for an hour. All right. I'm not on the cell phone. Without saying a word, if we want no discussion, I'll pretend like I'm dozing off. I'll just be, relaxing. And so usually I'm pretending like I'm dozing off, and it's a half-hour haircut.
There you go. It's much better. I mean, like, we're all in the kind of same thing. It's like, look, it's not that I don't want to interact with you. It's not that I don't like you as a person. But this is a business transaction on some level, and I gotta
listen.
I gotta go.
Here's the deal: we know her too well here, so there's some times where like the scissors might hit the side of your shoulders, like you're listening here, and like, all right, she does a great job. And look, it's right down the hallway, but no, absolutely, especially in season, and you're lacking sleep, man. You just come in there and you're like. But it's nice not having to leave the building.
We'll get into how it ended, but this was a challenging year, right? A challenging year in terms of the amount of practice time, the amount of human action with your team, without a preseason. Instead of worrying about the result, in terms of the process, you and I talk about this. I don't know if you know. You and I talk about this every year, like. You were one of the first guys. We sat at one of the Super Bowls. You talk about hybrid defensive players. That's the future, right? That it's like basketball, positionless stuff.
Sure.
Is there something from this year that COVID forced you to do that you're going to keep moving forward, even when the world opens back up?
That's a great question. I think the world will change in a lot of ways, just based on we were forced to communicate differently. I think you'll have less business travel, number one. Anyway, there are a handful of things, how we handled our Saturdays and our Saturday evenings in the traditional fashion. We began to, because we couldn't meet at the hotel, we'd meet and install the opening play Saturday after practice. I think our players enjoyed that. And so, there was a little bit less rigid schedule at the hotel when they checked in. The meetings were already done, and unless it was a night game. So that was interesting. Look, the one thing I would say, man, is and we know this already because of injuries, but man, you're coaching every player on the roster, because you don't know when. In this case, we're getting ready to play Carolina, and Saturday morning, Kamara's COVID positive, and the other 5 running backs are close contacts. They're all out. None of them are going. Like, and this isn't Wednesday or Thursday. This is like 2 hours before wheels up, or 3. So we have an extended walkthrough, and fortunately, we had some flexibility. Ty Montgomery, who's played running back, was playing receiver for us, so he moves to running back. We get a tight end ready to block some third down. And ultimately, really, and this, no one wants to hear it. Like, in other words, no one wants to hear about the pains you're having or the challenges. But it was one of those grit and grind years that was the one thing about this team. And we played in a handful of crazy games where, man, all our corners are out for a game, or the running back room is out, and we found a way. That was the thing. This was a mentally tough team, and we said at the beginning of the year, you're going to have to be, because everyone's going to have some of these challenges, and no one really is interested in hearing about them. They're just interested in seeing the results, and And so, yeah, we're coaching every player on that roster because we're going to need them, you know, and it came up this year a number of times. Again, we had, you know, in Drew's near the end of his career, you know, last year we missed some games with a thumb injury. This year we missed some games, and you know, it was Teddy last year that came in, and then Taysom came in this year. Jameis played a role, but it's the difference, I think, in making a run as opposed to building a program. And there's a difference, you know. There's that. Hey, we're going to make a run, and I don't know the sustainability of that, but I think we built something here that has that. And there are a lot of things though that I think we'll look at maybe a little differently. But right off the top of my head, that Saturday schedule, even some of our schedules during the week, I do miss this though. I miss being closer.
Yeah.
I miss being closer to the player in a closer setting, in a team meeting room where I could see the eyes. And, you know, picture this. Picture you're a stand-up comic and you're wanting to get a response. It's hard to do when you're in one of these socially distanced field houses. Like, you come up with something you feel like is really good and it's crickets.
Hey, I'll give you the example. I don't know if you ever saw, but there's the making of Caddyshack. And, and Dangerfield thought he was bombing, right? Dangerfield thought he was bombing because he'd only performed in front of a live audience. And they're like, Rodney, it's just one take. You got to do it again and again, and nobody can laugh, right? Like,
yeah. And so there's no feedback.
But by the way, just quick question: is that a nitro? Is that a Starbucks nitro?
Cold brewed nitro.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's
sweet cream.
It's Irish sweet cream.
Oh.
Right.
Okay. I do the sweet cream and vanilla. By the way,
whatever the feature is. Like, you know, that it's nitro cold brew, and then they'll have like salted caramel or whatever.
No, I don't know if you know this, okay, but it's actually illegal for them to sell a venti because it's got too much caffeine. On the other hand, this is a true story. You can buy as many of them as you want.
I bought 2.
Right? You can't get a venti, but you can get 2 because the venti has too much caffeine.
What would this be? That's not a venti.
The law. You are breaking the law. The Starbucks police, the caffeine police will break and come get Sean Payton. You've been through a lot with Drew. Winning a Super Bowl, obviously the years in which because of the Bounty Gate thing, your defense was just decimated, right? Salary cap issues, the crazy loss in Minnesota, the call against the Rams. I mean, like literally you have run the gamut with this guy.
Yeah.
Like if this is it, how would you, from somebody who was with him side by side because as a Charger fan, like there was always questions about him. There was no true buy-in to him, right? They drafted Phillip to eventually replace him, and coming off the arm, like the story of his career is really coming off the injury and playing for you. How would you surmise it from somebody who was part of this unbelievable career?
Yeah, I think start at the highest achievement. I mean, this is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think that, and I'm not speaking for him, but man, the attention to detail, grit, work ethic, competitive nature, and then tremendous athleticism. He's a tremendous foot athlete. That's the one thing, you know, he's someone that you'd never say he's going to run and beat you. That's not what I mean. But he's a tremendous, like, vertical jump dunk a basketball, beat Andy Roddick in tennis at age 13. Like, he's a tremendous athlete. And I would say all of those things, his story of adversity, you know, with this shoulder being fully torn, it was unprecedented. There was just no, like, hey, can he come back? Well, we don't know because we haven't had one with a fully torn. So, you know, he was embarking on something that hadn't been done. And here's one of the great traits about him. And just think about this for a second. I don't know how many games any year, pick a broadcast copy of one of his games, and then just turn it on in the middle of a series, and you're never going to be able to tell if he's ahead or behind. And that's not the case for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
You can never tell. He could be up 30 or down 15, and you're not going to know. And there's a trained, like, machine-like killer approach, and that's very hard to do. We talk about the physical grind of playing in your 40s, but man, there is a mental grind to that each week, preparing with all that encompasses the game plan, the protections, the different players that come on your roster. Hey, we're going to Carolina. We got no running backs, Drew. All right. Really? And we're discussing this on the plane. Like, like I'm on the sidelines with this issue. He's under center with this issue.
Right.
And so he can compartmentalize. He's the best optimist I've ever been around. In other words, he's clearly thinking positive thoughts. Next game, next season, next week, next rep, and it's so infectious. So where do you begin? I mean, I just tried to give you a Cliff Note version of a first ballot Hall of Fame player that, and everyone loves this story, from down on, like, on the bottom of a pile in the last game of the season, I think versus the Broncos, and being diagnosed with, hey, you got a fully torn, and by the way, we have another guy we drafted here,
right.
And you know what I mean? I
Yes.
can't imagine some of the long hours, meeting him in Birmingham when we first met, rehabbing, meeting his wife at that time, just the two of them. It's been 15 years, and I don't feel like I see the age until I see his children or he sees my children. And then you're like, wow, like,
yeah,
that's when you see age.
Why are people so reluctant to buy into Taysom?
I don't know. I was asked that question a few minutes ago, and by the end of my discussion, he said he would give me a first-round pick for him. So I'll try to be brief. I think people are reluctant to buy into Taysom as a quarterback. They can't be reluctant to buy into him as an asset
Right.
football player.
Right.
Like, if we put him out there for trade, we would have 31 other teams with interest. Now, whether that would be for quarterback or not, but he's one of the fastest players on the team that weighs 240 pounds. He's a great teammate. He's always smiling. He's smart. He's tough. He blocks punts. He plays L4 on the kick coverage unit. He's an F tight end. If there were two of them, one would be a starting linebacker. If there was a third, there'd be a starting strong safety. Like, he is such a gifted athlete and just as impressive as a person. People are just hesitant because we all are hesitant to not knowing what we've seen so far, and so he's relatively new as a quarterback. The exposure. He had 4 games this year, won 3 of them. Man, he's got tremendous arm talent. He can move in the pocket. He can beat you with his feet. Can he process it quick enough to regularly make the decisions and make up for the reps that he hasn't had? We'll see. But he's a tremendous football player. Like, it just in the essence of it's a throwback almost, right?
Yes.
I mean, as you try to type people, we all like to say, well, who's he like? Well, who's he like? I don't know. It's been a while. His stature is uniquely different. He is, and it's only maybe the teams in the division that truly or understand or appreciate, him being out that last game. There's a physicality that comes in the running game when he's playing. His best game of the season was at Tampa Bay. And I think he accounted for, not as the starting quarterback, but he had like 160 yards offense in that game, throwing, running. And look, the sideline goes crazy with him because they've got that much respect. He's such an unselfish player. We'll find out if he's good enough to play quarterback. And I think the question really is, why is there skepticism at him at quarterback?
Yes.
And it's understandable because there's not been a lot of exposure to it.
People think you were hiding Jameis this year. Like, you didn't want to play him because everybody will figure out how much you fixed in some of the decision making, and it keeps his value low and gives you the ability, to retain him. If somebody says, "Come on, Sean, really, you're keeping him so nobody else can see what you've done with him," what would your response be?
I would say this. So I just finished watching the Queen's Gambit, which is a pretty cool show. And man, I know this. You hear this all the time. People will give Bill Belichick a compliment that he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Like,
yes,
I'm a forward backward mover, and I couldn't possibly figure out the game that goes one left, three up, and all of that. And so, no, honestly, our exposure to Jameis was outstanding. There's never a point, unless you've secured and cannot improve your seed, where you mess with winning or losing. Like the only, yeah. And what happened in Philly was like, was at the end of the year was, in my opinion, awful for football. Like that was like, we've not really seen that in our league, especially, and
that's more of a basketball thing. Right?
Yeah, look, bad deal. And when that happens, man, there's a part of your soul in the locker room goes out the window. Make no mistake about it, because there's other players out there. It's challenging enough in the third or fourth preseason game. It's challenging even when your seed is secured and you only have a fixed roster, and you're going to rest some guys, and there's some other starters that are like, hey. And so, to your point with Jameis, it's, man, there was a commitment made to Taysom prior to signing that contract about this opportunity to be the two, but in season he was the three, because we were not going to lose Drew and then lose all the other elements to where Taysom was playing for that game. We just weren't going to do that. Jameis came in, I think, in San Francisco, but then with a full week of preparation, we would go with Taysom. I can understand that, but look, when I say this, if Jamies Winston becomes our starter, which I think he very well could be, I want to pay him, see him fulfill every dream possible. We're in the business, I think, of making dreams come to reality. We really are as coaches. And the minute it becomes anything other than that, but this year, man, the exposure for us was outstanding.
Coach, tell me what you're doing with Zebra technology.
Yeah, look, it's the league sponsored. Well, it's a partner of the league. Zebra's the barcode that we have on all our food and our products that we go to the store and we swipe. That's what they do. That's their main thing, the barcode, and hence the term Zebra. And they kind of ventured into this NFL where they put those same barcodes in the players' shoulder pads, and so we don't just have to track where your muffler is or track your food at a grocery store. We can actually track player movement for a few reasons. It enhances the production, so all of a sudden we're hearing these next gen stats, and the younger generation said Alvin Kamara went 21 miles an hour. That comes from Zebra. All right, so there's one element that's positive. The other element, for me, my first exposure was relative to data that helped me learn about my practices, how far guys traveled, with what type of intensity, how long they're on the field, how many times did the quarterback actually throw the ball without assigning a coach to it. And so we were able to get data on practices and make sure that we could help at least monitor and reduce soft tissue injury. And then it's expanded where it's in the ball. The chip's in every ball now. This isn't just one team. This is the whole league. Every game, every
Why can't they get the spots right then?
Listen, it's coming.
Why can't they get the spots right?
It's coming. It's coming. We're
$1 billion league, and we got some old guys over there going, I don't know, close enough.
Listen, how do you like the punt that travels out of bounds 40 yards in the air? All right. And then the official on the sideline just starts walking. No, he just keeps walking, and he's looking at me, and I'm 40 yards from him, and I'm like, it looks good. I just periff that, and so look, the technology, the speed of the game, and look, this helps the officials, but ball crossed the plane, ball goes out of bounds, foot goes out of bounds, all those things, we're moving in that direction, and we should never be afraid of that. We should embrace it. You see it in tennis, and I understand Cyclops. You with me?
Tennis. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
outstanding, right?
Amazing, the best.
And they would say, though, there's a little bit of inaccuracy with Cyclops. I'm good with that, but there's clear closure for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then I can be like,
why don't we have that? I mean, why are we not instituting that? I don't know. That's
it's coming. It's coming. It's just been a little slower. Our league's always been a little slower to move that way, but that's coming because it'll be forced to come. It'll be forced to come. You can't have the games mean too much, and they're not best of fives or best of sevens.
Yeah.
We learned that the hard way in 2018. It's a 3-hour game, and there's a finality to it, and someone wrote a story the other day about it and said that one of the more controversial calls. There was no controversy about that no call, right? Like that's historically speaking. Let's never use the term controversial. All right, that's the spin you put on it. If you want to say it was, Right. So it wasn't controversial, but I think this technology will help us to. It will help us to help the officials, and I think one of the harder jobs on game day is officiating.
Last thing, you've been more than gracious with your time. Every year I ask you this, and it kind of relates to the first question, but in terms of football itself, give me a trend, give me something that is happening, and the fans will kind of learn. We did hybrid players, we talked about mobility of quarterbacks, and the importance not just in the foot athleticism of Drew, but also the pure athleticism of the Lamars, of the Taysoms of the world. Is there it can be something small. Is there a trend you feel that is going to take off? Obviously, Alvin is a newer version of Reggie, and your ability to split a guy out wide as a running back and create that ultimate mismatch on a linebacker or on a safety. Mm-hmm. Is there something that's coming, or you think is trending in football?
Yeah, look, we've definitely seen the evolution of offense and defense trend to the nickel packages, the 3 receiver sets, and the number one thing that's not caught up with that is the Pro Bowl positions that we list. When I've coached in the Pro Bowl and gone down there and said, all right, linebackers over here, and I'm not really talking about DeMarcus Ware. I know you play in an Okie package, but you are a rush end.
Yeah.
And so that all can be cleaned up. But the nickel in today's defense is a starting player. Like when I tell you our nickel played 90% of the snaps, and our true Sam linebacker, take the other 10%. And so this is nothing earth-shattering this year, but man, how we value the third corner. Look
at Green Bay.
Yeah,
what happened in Green Bay?
Yeah, how we value that position based on salary, agent, draft selection. You're playing with 3 corners.
I mean, but Green Bay. I mean, they lost the game because of their third corner. There's other things,
but no, it's unbelievable. So, and so conversely, you're seeing those things offensively. I still think tight ends look, you can only draft what's given to you. And so what are the positions that we can't find that we have to look to? Like you don't see as much tight end offense in the college game, and yet it's still something important to our game. So where are they coming from? They're still on the field somewhere in football. They might be on the basketball court. So we've seen examples of that. It's like a fullback is important to us, but it's like finding. Well,
you got to go to Wisconsin, or you
it's like finding it's like finding a road runner, or a unicorn. You've heard about them, but so where are they coming from? Well, they're still on the football field, but they're just being played in other positions. I think you're seeing the importance of tight ends in versatility with what we're doing offensively and what teams are doing. And then I would say, look, the quarterback moving around is not new. Bill Walsh wanted an athletic quarterback with movement skills that could escape, that could run and hurt you with his feet. All right. And so every year we keep getting them. And yet, and we're going to look at these two this weekend. It's 3rd and 8, and I'm not going to allow you to move, and you have to make a play in the pocket. All right. You have to have that skill set. All right. Now, you have to have that skill set. And I do think the other thing, I don't know what the offseason holds for us this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar. There's some of this to be decided still. But I think we're getting a lot more information relative to player health and safety, and in that balance, in that perfect utopia where, management council, union, player, coach, you find this balance of the perfect off season. What is that like? What's the perfect training camp? What's that like? And then, the thing that has to change, that's broken, is the current hiring cycle and the lack of diversity relative to head coaches. It's brutal. And we can come up with a lot of reasons, all right? But I think we're all looking for solutions. And ultimately, ownership and front office GM, those are the ones who are hiring head coaches. And it's a little bit more of an elected position than a selected position, which an assistant is. There's usually someone that says, yeah, I like him too, and then I like him, and then boom, ready, and here we go, he's our guy. I don't like that calendar begins during the season. And not because it's madness now. Our off seasons change so much that the very first time that a team should be able to visit with a head coach or an interview, the very first time should be the Monday after the Super Bowl, next week. You can come up with 10 reasons why, and most of them revolve around, and this is because we've always done it this way. All right. But the schedule has changed. It's different. All right. And that has nothing to do with in-season ownership decisions to fire a coach. That if that's what you want to do and you make that's fine. I mean, teams have rallied and played well with that decision. That's fine. It has nothing to do with that. And it has nothing to do, but it is a little unique that, man, any of these teams that are winning are managing coaches on Zoom interviews during the week as we're getting ready. It's like, in the minute that, man, you have a chance to be a GM or a head coach, and you go home at night, your better half, your spouse, they don't ask you about, hey, how does Chicago look? They ask you about, like, how'd it go today? And they're not talking about preparation for the playoff game. They're talking about your interview where we might live. And I get all that. But I think there's also the ability for the team that's making these decisions earlier than later. There's less pressure on that team to consider all candidates when they're one of the first or the second, compared to the very last when there hasn't been a candidate hired of color. And then, for whatever reason, I don't know what's going on in Houston, but obviously there was pressure there. And so this process should begin after the season, just like free agency. Take that first week, negotiate, discussion period, the next week with assistant coaches, because I've heard the argument, well, we're going to miss out on there's no hurry. There's no reason that this should be taking place. All right, you found a way to lose all of your games but 3. All right. You're going to get a high draft pick, but that's all you get. You don't get to start early on your search. You've been dysfunctional. You've lost. All right. Fix it. But it's going to begin at the end of the season.
Right.
And I still haven't heard, besides the Senior Bowl date, one good argument other than that's how we've always done it. And I think that, back to my initial point, can help begin what is we're still a long ways away. We're forever away. The progress has been awful and quite honestly embarrassing. And yet it is what it is.
Yeah. Listen, I cannot tell you how gracious you've been with your time and with your honesty, from your coffee to your haircut to your feelings about the hiring practice of the league. It's always awesome. Next year in person. And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. 2 coffees, right?
Yep. 2. Always 2. Breaking the law. Thanks so much.
Thank you.